I changed it to temporary.
My
Now my
goodness, I
phone can't
love
do it.
that.
And then I turn around, and I head back north, back to the Vibe, and then that one blows.
I know, he texted me. Yes, we're lucky. We're all lucky.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday night in Green Mountain Falls. Where else should you be? Well, I'm hoping she can come up with Apple. She really enjoyed it. Okay. This time, the Board of Trustees meeting for February 17th, 2015 will come to order. The time is 7:04. And let it be known that Trustee Cook, Trustee Stevens, and Trustee Gardner are not present tonight, but we do have a quorum. I was just made aware, Board, Trustee Gardner, and she unfortunately had a mishap, heart attack, Friday night, but she is doing well. She is back home, and our thoughts and prayers go out to her. We will be getting a card, and if you guys can swing by town hall in the next couple of days to sign that for us and staff as well, that would be good. So we're praying for her speedy recovery. Her sister, I guess, is in town, and all is good, but that does hit our community hard. So, and for the pledge at this time. Trustee Ellis, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You guys, it's so good to see you tonight. We have people here we haven't seen in so long. Welcome back. And our neighbors, and thank y'all for coming out on this snowy day. We do think about all the weather going on in the Northeast, and
I came out with
we're thankful that we got the snow that we did, and we're here tonight. So thank y'all. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda? I do know the one, Mary, was this number, $3,677.98.
That's the current bill.
That's the current bill run. So I know that wasn't posted at the beginning. So that's a new number. Okay. Are there any others? Yeah, the bills run. Okay. Someone that will accept and move to approve the agenda.
To approve. Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, consent agenda, are there any items that need to be for further review?
I have a question on the bills run and the financials.
Are you asking a question?
No, you're asking if anything should be pulled out.
Well, I'm talking to the board
Oh, okay.
about that, sir. So, board, is there anything that needs to be pulled out? Okay, so I'll accept those then.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay,
No
discussion.
questions?
Discussion on consent agenda.
And why is that?
Matt, you've been on the board long enough, you know.
I'm
Okay,
sorry,
all those
but
in favor, vote by
I'm
saying
sorry,
aye.
I don't understand.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Perfect. This time we'll have public input for items not on the agenda. Please stand and state your name.
I would like to say something if you don't mind.
Yes. Okay, don't stand. No, Mr. Nicholas, that's fine.
I'm gonna leave right away. I'm granddaughter coming to give me case out church, but you know, for the last 50 years, I've been trying to get somebody to dredge the stream and build some sand traps, and it looks like we're at, you know, I've called a couple of times lately. It looks like we're about there, if we can get that. We're going in the storm season. And we get the debris from upstream on our property. A couple of times they called the Corps of Engineers on it because I was finished, you know, and I was able to get by with that because we were grandfathered for so many years, and they let that be. But when the shift starts down, it really messes up the property. And each neighbor on our side, on each side of us, do not take care of the property. So you have code enforcement privileges to do some things. And right down here, a couple of great big dead trees before you get to the curb to get on Belvedere. And it seems like you could enforce your rights and have those trees taken down. They're dead, they're fire threat, but also you could do something on this code enforcement to get the sand traps down. You know, I have a couple of them here in town already. They haven't been successful because they don't, the one southeast of town does not go under the street to carry the debris. So it just drags up there. On the first turn to the right when you leave the lake, whatever that road is, there is a sand trap up there. You know, it's been there for many years, but it's not successful because you don't have a collar pipe taking it onto the stream. Maybe it's not necessary there, but it's certainly necessary on the stream. And, you know, besides being a businessman, I'm an ecologist, and I love the mountains and the rivers, and we own a great deal of the rivers in South Park, and we plant the family that I don't own anything, but the family does. So I'd like to see that done. But I have two little things I want to ask you about. Street lights, and I don't know if we'd be opposed to that, but we'd be glad to help the town and buy the street lights, and you all put them up or something. That we would furnish those if you'd be interested. I did this in Oklahoma, but instead of, we put them up and bought them. We're very similar to Manitou and Broadmoor and Woodland Park. If there wouldn't be too much opposition and you all be in favor of it, I could see it coming from the city lines out here and then about 5 or 6 blocks and then up here to the highway. And they really help your community. They bring traffic down to your business people, and it kind of helps with vandalism and different things. It's good security. The other thing that I think you should do, and I don't know if Christy C would be interested. I want to go well, you know, from Oklahoma, and I knew Granddaddy real well. He just sponsors some fine art stuff in Oklahoma City with a partner. But he gets this old barn down here in a hotel. He's probably in here one of the owners. I don't even know who owns it. The guys that bought the old hotel across from the tennis court. If you get something done with that, that's really a fire trap. And if it ever got started, it burned out the town. The things that we were talking about are probably good for everybody. And if you really consider all that, we'd really appreciate it. And we would help with the street lights. So if you want us to, so we can buy. We have many hundreds of them for our town of Oklahoma running by. We're in spring. Pennsylvania found him, and they built Manitou and brought too, and I used to buy from them. So if we could help you with that, we'd be glad to. Other than that, I'm gonna call my granddaughter to get me. So
Okay,
I'm real proud of you. I'm proud of your building,
thank you.
and it's very nice to have it up here. This is our kids' old horse pasture right here. They used to bring our horses over here and leave them so they can. So,
Mr. Nicholas, can you say your name and your address,
okay,
please?
I'm David Nicholas, like Santa Claus. And I look just like him, but it's 10860 Belvedere, Fremont Falls. And we would like to see those kind of things happen if you can do it.
Okay, and Mr. Nicholas, if you could touch base with Michael as well, our Public Works Director, have you all met before? I don't know.
No.
Okay, so,
I used to work with the other stuff. I've been trying to get those sand traps for 50 years.
yes.
It made me real happy when you get up above me and heard this winter fall, I could, my gosh, you're gonna do something.
Yes, well, thank you so much, and y'all can correspond. Okay,
You guys are doing a fine job, we're all proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Okay. Okay, old business, item number 8, auditor bids.
I don't have any information on either A or B, still waiting to get it back. Got it to minutes.
the special event permit application for the 36th annual Thin Air National Car Show.
Credit cards, no information.
Excuse me?
Both A and B will be on next agenda.
Okay, thank
Mr. Morano.
Right.
You would stand, sir, and
Sure.
this is a new board for you.
It is.
So we haven't had the opportunity to really meet you yet.
Right.
So if you want to just tell us a little bit about we all go down every day, but you know, when you're here.
Right, so my real name is Mariano Nandin Jr. I also go by JR for those who have, for some reason. Been in charge of the Broadband Committee for Colorado Springs Rock Custom Club for, 10 years now, I guess? It seems like, sometimes longer than that. But the point is this is our 36th annual Internationals. We call it Thinner Nats for short. Typically, the event attracts about 200 participants. And then we have about 20 some odd of our own club members that bring their cars up. For those of you who have never experienced the event, it's typically around the lake. We park the cars, around the lake in front of the parking lot where the pantry is. The club cars are typically parked against the wall where the hill is in the flagpole. And that's where we have our games and things like that for participants. Over the last few years, because of the Green Mountain or the Green Box facility, we've been able to use their model for vendors that we hadn't had before, weren't able to have before because we were focused on having vehicles parked even before we could. Basically, it's a one-day event. We have a DJ that we hired to provide the music. And basically, it's a one-day event with approximately, I want to say, 1,500 not participants, but spectators. And what we've also added over the last couple of years is what we call a women's tea. And we use the church to basically run kind of like a bingo and have some prizes and things for the ladies to do, because believe it or not, not all of them are in the cars like the guys are. So something for them to do, and it's pretty standard in the rock run or the car show or hot rod. Basically, we'd love to come back up here again and have the event. I can tell you that from the surveys that we do with the participants, when we ask them if we should do it again, it's an overwhelming yes. If we ask them about the location, if we could change it, it's an overwhelming expletive no, because they love coming here. Okay? And even with the unfortunate moisture that we had last year, the thing is that really doesn't defray, or eliminate the enthusiasm that people have to come to this town and this location. We've asked that question a lot of our participants if they would want us to entertain a different venue, and they say absolutely not, because they just love coming here, they love the setting and all that the town provides. So basically, that's what the application's about. Unless you have any questions for me at this point.
Other questions for JR at this time?
And you're the veteran of this. How does this affect you and the marshals?
I talked to JR earlier and told him that the board had brought in some special event fees, gave him my card, he's gonna call me first of next week hopefully, and we'll get that all figured out.
I do need to mention that, speaking of the fees, one of the reasons that I didn't put any numbers in there is because I typically don't know what we're going to get charged. But the bottom line is that hopefully from this meeting I can have a better idea of what it is that you guys would require, and then we'll go from there.
Do you remember what you paid last year?
I want to say it was $550. That number sounds right to me. But if you check your records,
And that would put it in line with what roughly the fees would be
right.
For an all day.
No, that number, as far as I remember, included any
Law
fees,
enforcement?
law enforcement, all that. So
No.
We didn't charge.
Yeah, and Mayor, the board recently adopted a new resolution that changes the fees. I know for sure for department. So I guess my question is this just for us to kind of look at tonight? It's not really submitted, or?
It's submitted,
Okay.
but like I said, I just didn't know what the numbers were.
Okay, so I guess, yeah,
Right.
and did you provide this, with liability insurance as an additional insurance last year?
I haven't, we do have a insurance company, I just haven't provided you the paperwork yet.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to make sure that you had that.
Yeah, we do.
Those are typically the things that we look at too, but, I would, if the board's anticipating approving it, I'd subject it to, updated figures so that you comply with the resolution.
So after y'all's meeting next week, update the figures and,
Do we have anything scripted?
That was the last
No,
thing.
yeah.
Last year,
He's got the slide.
so last year, there was some confusion as to who had the right to use the right from Blue Moose. Because the board, the Blue Moose, the permit to use it that day. And so we kind of had to move things around, so it sounds like on the front half, we want to do that rather than, I think it was the day up, you and I were talking,
Right.
and Tim was scrambling to find more parking, so, before you approve it, or it sounds like you're entertaining that, we need to look at what Blue Moose has been granted. I know they're putting dates, I just don't know which ones they are.
Okay, Carla did contact me today, just wanting to know what she needed to do for the beer garden to have. So we need to-
Well, the way her liquor license is set up through the state is that she has been, she does special events permits. She's done one for a certain number of days. They, at the time she put in the application, go all the way through the expiration of her liquor license. And I don't believe it expires until when we have no time clerk, so about a day. So she may have requested that date already. I just don't want you guys to grant him access to use that section without knowing what she wants to do if she's already requested that. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, in light of what happened last year, it's not an issue. You know, so whatever you decide, if you want to grant her the same that you did last year, I think we're okay with that. But yeah, it would be nice to know if it's going to be more than what last year was required.
No.
Okay. Yes, so
Other than
we're
her
okay.
being able to, it's a finite square footage, so she can't, she wouldn't, but she could go out, take out, and use the same square footage, move it, but I don't anticipate she would.
Okay.
Right. No, I think it's just like it was last year.
Last year.
So, or there are two parts to this. We need to approve having the event, and then the second piece is the amount, at this time, you know, so.
I would move that we, have the event, or invite them to come and participate, and, the second part of that would be, upon, Marshall and JR having a discussion, and, actually finishing it on the next, meeting.
Okay.
And filing an acceptable insurance policy with man.
Yeah, and that's, I was just asking to make sure, because I didn't look at it last year, I didn't see it, so.
What I'll do is I'll have Scott Anderson fax the paperwork to them.
So.
And you don't have to, I'm not saying you need to do that before you apply, that you don't have to do that until.
Well, we'd like you guys to have it on record, just so you know, so if there's any issues, we can start addressing them now rather than until last minute. Because, we really don't like last minute surprises, if at all possible.
And JR, I don't see, like, if we were to get this on the agenda next time, you would need to come back. I mean, am I missing something
No,
here?
yes, if the board has questions, I'd ask volunteers.
Yeah. if we have any questions for him, so you won't need to come back or
Okay.
anything.
Well, but if, you know, at the same time, if you need me to come back, just let me know. and
Like
I'll,
to
you know,
drive.
Yeah, sure.
up here.
Yeah, I do.
We got, you can come back anytime. So I will entertain a motion to, on July 18th, to allow the car show to come up and do their car show. Okay,
Second.
second, any discussion more? Okay, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so then the second piece of that is the permit and how much,
That'll be after he and Chief talk next week.
okay?
Okay.
She's saying the application fee for or the permit fee, not necessarily the hours of hire of police personnel, but the.
How much we're going to charge.
So you guys are, it's the second and fourth line following.
So last year, you're saying
I think
$550.
I
it was like,
mean, you can approve the same amount as last year.
Yeah.
But this one too, you can increase it, you can.
We need to give him a heads up though, if we're gonna change that fee or anything. Or I think the $550 fee covers that, and that's what they did last year, and, there's no change. As far as I know. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for $550.
These are the updated numbers, but
These are not the updated numbers.
Just for the traffic control fee, not for the event.
The event fees, we didn't address as a group, just the traffic control. That's what we're addressing as a group. So I've moved to for 550.
550.
Second.
Second, discussion, trustee Quinn on that? Okay, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
okay, so just so I'm clear, it's 550 plus whatever we need to, or,
Yes?
Right, and that's what we needed to discuss. We need to figure out how many hours on the closure, things like that, so it's something that he discuss and then I can report back to after our conversation. You communicate with the board, or just so everybody's in the loop and then we'll
Right.
have a plan.
okay,
Okay,
so, again, say it in another way, 550 plus whatever the marshal fees are.
550 plus the traffic control.
Traffic control fees, okay.
perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, we appreciate it. We always like that day, the music. Okay. Item number B, 60, DOLA grant reimbursement. This is an update from Mary.
Do you want me to give the background?
Yes, please.
We got, obviously, we have a grant from the state to build this beautiful building. And providing that the town came up with $301,000 in match. And when that grant was applied for, there was $150,000 of that $301,000 match that our public works department was going to work themselves for the excavating, the equipment, material. They came up as half of that match money was.
So 150,000.
And unfortunately, our public works department didn't do it. They ended up hiring a company to do it for a third of the cost. So we, as the town, we have paid out $162,000 in our cash matching funds, which means we need another $138,000. I am working with DOLA to see that, what we have to come up with as far as in kind. They really don't take any in kind, and the given our situation and the story behind it, they're working with us. So I don't have any answers tonight. I wish I did. I talked with him again today. And he will be getting back with me in a few days. So we still don't have, they're holding up our last reimbursement because of the match issue. We don't have enough money to do the match. And that's, you know, $86,000 they're holding up that we really could be using right now. And my prayer is that we don't have to pay back any money. You know, that we don't not only not get the $86,000, but that we don't have to pay back any money. So, not a good situation. Okay.
So you were saying that there was 300,000 in matching funds, 162 we can block, and there's 138 out there,
Correct.
and you submitted.
We have no more expenses for this building to submit. So what we have come up with is various in-kind type donations. And even that is coming short. I already know that probably 15,000 of that is not going to be.
So if I can add some other, so the overall project came in under the original contract scope. Mary, how much under were we? Original contract scope was how much? Total 794,000.
Yes.
And the work done was six. You got it right.
I don't have it.
Oh, I thought that was that sheet.
And this is just the.
680,000, let's say. So it's about 100,000. So the building came in under budget, and some of the things that we cut because we knew that we were going to need in-kind donation. It's one of the reasons the road's not paved, the parking lot's not paved, and landscaping has been held up. It's the reason that there's not a sign out there. Things like that nice to have. We want to have them, and we one day should have them, but it's things that can be done down the road. That's why we're probably at the break-even point with DOLA in the fair sense. We're probably not going to have to pay anything back. We're probably not going to get more money from DOLA. Mary and I had a conversation with Mr. Thompson from DOLA about could we push some projects out. So, for instance, the parking lot. It's one of the deducts for the initial contract was $35,000 to have it paid. So if paved, they would reimburse us 62% of it. So it's not bad getting stuff for 38 cents on the dollar, but it has to be done by the end of February. So we talked, we actually got his bosses involved. We tried to get some stuff done and pushed out, because obviously it's February, it's 60 degrees one day and it's 6 the next. So we just we couldn't pay it even if we wanted to, if we had money right now. So push it out further. So where we are is where we are. And so she submitted, we're waiting on DOLA to give us our final answer right now.
Or do you have any questions, more questions?
So the option of paying and do additional work for the year is still kind of.
For the next 9 days.
So everything has to be completed by
It has to be complete.
regardless of what we do.
So we actually had the conversation the day after the audiovisual. So the audiovisual was $31,000 was his. I don't know that anybody up here wanted to spend $30,000 on AV equipment right now, but even if we had gone that route, he would have had to have had it done, buttoned up, and everything paid out in order for us to be able to apply for that. So it's that's like the crap sheet to get all that done.
Trustee Allison?
How many had signed up for the in-kind. Is there still any activities in that original scope left to?
First of all, their DOLA stuff, there is no such thing as in-kind for this particular grant. So they're watching it, the rules a little bit to allow us to put some in-kind in there, to help meet our match. So, the $100,000, I mean, we don't have any more money that we can spend to make that $138,000 our full grant. And,
So the types of things, not to interrupt, but so the types of things that are allowable and the types of things that aren't. So the dirt work that the town acquired to backfill, that has a tangible value. The time that, the time for staff for, is he saying no to that?
saying it all the time.
Well, staff was his idea. All right, so that could possibly be enough. Originally, he was saying time for staff that the town paid for Rob, for Chris, for Mary, for Michael. We'll
He
see.
said today that none of the time really is gonna be acceptable, but, there was a but. He said, but I'm gonna talk to, and, they're gonna see what they can do for us. So, it's just up in the air right
Originally, that time was good. The time that was bad would be time like the time for doing it. Tyler's time as the building owner and doing that wasn't going to be. So there was going to be paid stuff and not paid stuff, and it sounds like that changed. So, we shall see.
Yes. Question?
Who is the he you're referring to? I missed that name.
Robert Thompson from DOLA.
What's his first name?
Robert.
Robert, thank you.
Hey, trustee, when do you have a question about it?
Okay, so when the contract was signed, we were anticipated to spend $300,000. We spent 162. There's 138 that we didn't have money to pay for it to begin with.
Well, when the previous public work director / town managers who applied for the grant, in his grant, he put in that $50,000 of that $300,000 match. He was going to do the work himself. And for doing the excavating and the material and the equipment, he included all that kind of, everything he needed to do the prep work on this building. And it
And none of that's in the 162 that we were matched.
What's in that 162?
actual hard cash, I mean, we paid a lot of those,
Oh.
we, all the bills that came in for this project, and I'm glad, I'm glad that there was no money that they were, prior to me coming here, they were turning in every penny that was going out to this building, they were turning in as reimbursement. And I started thinking, you know what? I'm gonna start getting our match. And so, over the last 5 months, was pay out $162,000. I'm really thankful that I did do that, because we'd be a lot worse off now.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for talking with Mr. Thompson. Thank you, trustee Butts, as well. So,
Questions from the audience? Mary? What was the work that Rob was supposed to do?
Excavating.
He did that work.
He ended up hiring land excavating for a third of the cost. bill DOLA for.
Any other questions, comments?
When you say there were they were submitting for reimbursements, I don't know who's that.
Every month,
DOLA?
yeah, that was required, it was a report that we had to submit. And in that report was also our big, how do I say it? Every month we could submit to get payment back. Okay, we paid out this money, now we want some of that money back.
And that's not matching.
Well, they gave out of our $794,000, I believe, well, yeah, obviously, theirs was $494,000 that we could get from the state. And we gotten all the 86,000. And how we got that was every month, once we paid out the bills for the month, we could take those bills, it's kind of like RTA. You know, you can take those bills and you can turn it in for reimbursement. Up to.
So that's a different pot of money.
No, because the $494,000 is what the state's gonna give us, providing we spend $300,000. And that's where we're hung up.
And we can't commingle that
Yeah.
stuff.
And as, since we spent less on the project, we get less back from DOLA, which, but on the other hand, we have to pay, we have to in kind or whatever, less.
So what designates reimbursements from?
I'm sorry, what?
They both sound like reimbursements to me. Submit your bills and then they pay you back. That's what happened, that's outside of this 300,000. So what makes that money different than the money that you're trying to submit for?
It is separate, it is the same thing. Okay, so the whole project, let's say the whole project, as he said, came in way under budget. But we still qualified for the full budget. So month A, we spent $100,000. So we can take that $100,000 and on the report, I'm gonna bill DOLA 50 and I'm gonna use 50 for our match, is how it came up. But up until I came here, no money was being charged to our match. It was all getting billed to DOLA. And so it was like September, I thought, getting close to the end of our project, I need to start paying our match. And in the last 3 or 4 months, I was able to come up with $162,000 that we actually, you know, I took the full amount of all the bills for the month. And I decided which ones I was gonna DOLA reimburse us for and which ones we were gonna just process. Does that make sense?
There's no way to shuffle this.
It's the same money, no matter how you do it.
Well, if it's the same money,
Yeah.
you paid $300,000. It just didn't go.
Okay, so so you could do it this way. If $100,000 was paid out in this month, I could turn around and go to DOLA, I want the full $100,000. Or I can say, okay, just give me 50 of it and I'll just for our match. I've only been able to do $162,000.
I get that.
Okay,
There's a max that DOLA will pay out, period. And that's 62% of the project, which was $794,000. So if she continue taking 100% of it, then we have to pay 38%. So once DOLA hits that max, they're done. No penny. We pay that, and we have to pay our max, which would be $380,000. Well, the project came in under budget because there's not enough money to pay our $380,000. Does that help?
So something that we booked in May,
Won't count.
had we designated them separately, like you're saying that you've done recently, then that would have added to that $300,000.
Was I reimbursed as a kid?
Right. Just,
There's a lot of information and it gets complicated, you know, so, okay, so please keep us updated, Maria, on what Robert says. Okay, moving right along, item C, purchasing policy. One of the things that has come to our attention is that we really need to work on a purchasing policy and a procedure for this board and our staff. Previously, there really wasn't anything in place and money was being moved around and people were just buying and there isn't anything set in stone. So board, we have a couple of these to take a look at and begin the conversations. You know, there are 3 of us missing tonight and I would love to have more conversations with these guys when they're here. So I do not think tonight, I think this is just the beginning of those conversations, and I'd like to put this on the agenda as well for next time, Mary, to continue talking. So one of the things, just looking at these things, we need to think about that number. You know, what is that number to go in front of the board when we're gonna ask our department heads that if it's above this amount of money, they need to bring it to the board. Now, we toyed around, there's $1,000, there's some kind of policy somewhere saying $1,000, but we really can't find any documentation of that.
I have it.
Okay,
That was a memo that Tyler wrote when he was mayor.
okay,
It said
So
anything over
has-
1,000 has to go to the board.
okay,
That's where it was in writing, but it hasn't been followed.
okay, hasn't been followed. So we're starting this and we're trying to lay that foundation here. So, we have $1,000 maybe starting point. I know some of this stuff going around, you know, I had said $500, someone else had said $2,500. You know, that's one question we need to think about as we're looking at this. The second question, at least in my mind, is, does everything need to come to the board? You know, do we, you know, how does that protocol work? So to get those conversations going, those are 2 questions that I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on.
Before we talk about the number, so
Yeah.
I think the number's important, but the one that I put in front of everybody, I left them all blank. Because before we get to the number, on what the number means, I think there's got to be a policy in place, or a procedure in place, I should say. And Michael, can I use you as an example?
You're our example.
All right, so just to kind of walk you through my thought process on when I was writing this out. And not to just read it, but the timeline is to pass the budget. You're gonna pass it at the end of the year. And within that, you're gonna have 2 parts. You're gonna have your overall department budget, and you're gonna have your line items. So Michael, you're gonna have Department of Public Works, parks, you're gonna have, and within that Public Works, you're gonna have fuel, you're gonna have maintenance. So, and the department head, in my mind, is responsible for both of those. And you're responsible for making sure that you can fulfill each of the single line items. So, takes us down to point 2, which is more of a scenario. So, if a purchase is needed, is identified, and it's under X threshold, think you need it, it's under the threshold, then it's for your discretion to do. If it is over that threshold, but under threshold B, then as a department head, you need to consult the treasurer to determine if there's money in the bank for So, just because there would be money in your budget, whether it be the whole or that line item, either one, doesn't mean that the town can write the check, depending on how much it is. I also put in there that it's a good opportunity to have a sanity check. And I actually put sanity check in. Do you have money in your overall budget? And is there money in that specific line item budget? The treasurer, if we don't have money, it doesn't matter how big the emergency is. There's nothing so big that, as a treasurer, she can say no, due to lack of funds. If at the sanity check, if y'all are talking about it, she says, you know what, you want to buy that piece of equipment, you had $2,000 in your budget, this is $2,500, you're going to have to move some stuff around down the road, it doesn't sound, as a department head of your own budget, that's on you. If you still need to do that, and it's within those parameters, as a treasurer, doesn't give veto power unless we just don't have money. If this is over that second threshold, then it needs to go out for 3 bids, and it does need board approval. We might need contracts written, we might need a lot of things. So everything is check and balance though. So my thought is once a quarter, we need to realign and reallocate. So if you've bought that sander and that sander upset the apple cart within your budget, then it needs to be realigned, because we sat here as a group, agreed to a budget, we had public hearings on it, and we got it. So we need to publicly reconcile our budget, make sure that we're making it through the year. And the only other caveats I put is if the treasurer says no because we don't have money, and then obviously the board and the staff all need to know that we're in that level of situation. And 2 is, even if you haven't gone and you see that we are at that level, and we need to determine what that level would be, then that same type of information needs to be disseminated. So my thought when I was writing this is to push the responsibility and the authority to the department heads, that these are the steps, these are the procedures on how to go through things. There's some checks, there's some balances in there, but at the end of the day, I don't want to micromanage, and I don't think it's up to the board to micromanage. We hire good people to run their own departments, and I think with frequent reconciliations, we'll see behaviors modified. So that was my 2 cents.
And I appreciate the time you put into that, yeah. Trustee Ellis, you also sent something, your thought. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Just for now, just make one statement. I think for a responsible kind of a program that does begin with our passing a budget, which we've all worked real hard on, that any kind of an expenditure, whether it be a line item in the budget that we've all pleaded our insensibility, and we know from early childhood on this, to maybe something that will be outside of a line item. I think each one of these items needs to be bounced off of the treasurer to say, can we cover this? Can we really buy this? Even though we've got all the approvals done, we've still got a cash flow consideration about when do we get our money from our sources, and is it available?
So maybe, just talking through this with you, maybe a better question is not, can we buy this, but rather, when is the money going to be coming in to buy this, because this has already been talked about with the board or whatever, right? Instead of, I think the wording there, again, goes through the treasurer, simply like, when the money's gonna be here, so this has been approved. When can we, when will the monies be available? I think that's a key question.
But if I'm hearing you right, it does not matter the threshold.
Everything.
Yes. Now, one way to take care of both of those is with this preloaded GPC card, is that since there has to be money in the account, say it's $1,000 on the account, and we can set it at whatever that very first threshold is, we set the cards at that limit, that we know there's money that can be spent because those cards are preloaded. That way, there can be, the treasurer doesn't have to look at everything. And I'm not for or against whatever level of oversight or overlooking or whatever from the treasurer, but I don't know that we want every $15 filter for a front end loader to need to go through the treasurer.
Or to have to come to the board, because we don't meet all the
Well, the
time.
board, I want to make something clear about the purchase. The board approves all purchases, period. It's just a matter of when. And it's a matter of whether you're ratifying a purchase or whether you're approving it in advance. So, the consent agenda comes back and says, if you do go with the credit card route or the charge card route, it says the clerk wrote the check approving these purchases and sent them out. If the board has a question about what those purchases were for that month, the board can certainly look at them. You can look at each charge, each invoice, everything. But you're approving those purchases just retroactively doing it. Then there's the larger projects that you approve. A good example was the dirt work here. There's a contract that came before you guys. No work had been done. You guys looked at the contract, you went through it, looked at liability, did all kinds of things like that on the front half. Approved the project, approved the purchase, the expenditure of the money, and then the work was done. In that case, the work was done, but sometimes it's then that item is purchased. So it gives you that out to say, okay, those $15 purchases, parts and things that are more consumables, that's something that you want them to be able to go do. It's a matter of, okay, this isn't a line item, it's outside, the problems that arise are, this is a non-budgeted line item purchase. It's above what I can put on the credit card and do. What do you do then? That's the question. It's not that every purchase, because the board doesn't approve every purchase. It's just a matter of retroactive versus advance. So the dollar figure should be kind of set where, the 15, I wouldn't set it at $5. That's not going to do anything. But you also don't want to set it at $5,000 where it's, well, we just bought that piece and you're in an ebb rather than a flow cash flow. And you don't have that $5,000 extra that month to pay off the card, pay off that invoice that came in. The misconception becomes the board says, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do all these projects when it approves the budget. You can't do all those January 1. You don't have the money January 1. People don't pay their property taxes December 31st. Some of them don't pay them until past the deadline, they pay fees and things like that. But your money doesn't come in right, which means you can't have all 3 department heads doing things right at the beginning of the here. That's where the problem becomes, is when it's projects. It's not whether you're gonna do them. You've already approved it when you approved the budget, you approved the project. The timing is what you guys are struggling.
And again, that all goes back to when the money flow is going to be coming in.
And there's
So
really
the
only,
treasurer would be the one.
really only one person
At-
in all of that.
I think at a certain threshold, the treasurer needs to be involved.
Right.
Now, Mary sent out some good notes. She piggybacked on the one that you put out.
Right.
That
We
talked
didn't
about
print that out.
bi-weekly meetings with the,
You didn't print that out. I knew it. Well, that's fine. We don't.
but the point I was gonna make on that was you talked about disseminating the financials at the staff's bi-weekly meetings. And I know you haven't had it, but y'all had that or had some kind of frequent checks and balance where there's communication about, all right, we're good, or we've got this project coming up, we're gonna raise Belvedere 3 feet, we need this much dirt, and we're not raising Belvedere. We need this much dirt, it's gonna cost us this much. It's not a question of, at that point, can I spend the money, it's just when can I spend the money?
Right. When can I spend
But I think those communications, but once again, it's pushing the responsibility down to the three of y'all as much as it is.
So board, I'd like to definitely put this on the agenda to talk through. I would like maybe Matt to, see these and maybe for the
Yeah,
next
that was
meeting.
my last comment was, I didn't get a chance to go through this as much as I'd like, and I still have requests that the towns give me other examples.
Right.
And part I'd like to get, to look at what another municipality with a similar size budget, where they set their thresholds. I know some of them have had their policies that they revisit frequently and they haven't changed. So a huge city where the public works or buy a road grader because that's how much they can spend without really raising an eyebrow, and try to put that threshold in a small town, obviously that's creates a problem. So I've got some comments that I'll put in a mental form and circulate, and I'll put examples of them.
So before, I know we're gonna kick this down, but the thresholds, I think, are arbitrary. We can start them conservative, build up, we can start them big and constrict them if we have to. But there's two things that, and they're opposing things. One is the spending outside of our specific line items. So in your case, road equipment. Road equipment, in this case, we're gonna say where it's $500 you thought you were gonna need for this year, and you had a great deal on it, $2,200 budget. But if you see that it's needed, we gotta figure out, as a board, is it doable that because he said he was gonna need $500 for the year for road equipment, and he's come across this $2,200, there's a need and it's a good deal, does he not get to get it because he didn't put it in his line item budget? Or is there flexibility to do something?
And that stuff like that come down to more of your treasurer or bookkeeping. Because at the end of the day, you guys can say, oh, we're good with doing that. And when the auditor comes in here and says, don't do that, we're gonna get a free.
Well, we're gonna talk about auditors
No.
next week. We gotta
No, I'm saying that there's things like that on what you're gonna be able to do. Because it may be that the auditor says, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. The auditor may say, hey, don't do that. If you do that, you need to leave it negative. You need to show that work that the state's going to see. That's stuff that, that you guys should have answers to too. And I'm not going to give those answers for you. I know Mary has been working at a few municipalities that she has connections with too, so. The things like that where it's, are you gonna move money around? The first questions that need to be answered are, can you do it that way? And that's gonna look at your auditor at state and other municipalities and say, yeah, that's how we're doing it.
Do we not get to, if it goes into ordinance or resolution or at whatever point, is that not?
You guys can reallocate money. I'm not saying you can't spend the money. You can obviously spend the money. It's a matter of the bookkeeping side. And for her, as the treasurer, her headaches, I would do it in the most accepted practice that you can, so that your auditor says, that's how we like to see it. So it does come back to your auditor and kind of what they're saying. But that's not really a big issue, it's in whether they can purchase out of line and things like that. The issues are more, what control are you giving them? Do they have to stay within their line items? Do they have to, but that's the control that the board has, that you guys need to set that policy. I agree with you that the numbers are arbitrary, because they can change. You guys can get $1 million donation. Well, now you have a lot more money to spend next year or to spend at the end of this year.
I'm waiting for that, so.
We're gonna
Anybody
make
out there want to donate? Yes. Mr. Brown?
Previous boards had a policy. It was called budget amendment. If a department head said, I need this, I got a good deal, there was a threshold, like you mentioned. If it went over the threshold, the board had to approve a budget amendment before that money would be spent. Now, whoever wanted to spend the money also had to have a recommendation of what other line item is going to be reduced so your budget stays balanced. You don't, so that was a part of the amendment request from the department head. And it worked pretty well. You remember that back?
Yeah, I do, to a point.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Mike spent a lot of time, I'm sure, coming up with this idea he had. I hope he didn't spend too much time, because that's exactly the policy that was until I don't know, changed sometime after April 15th. The individual department heads had some sway if it was $1,000 or under in each of their own departments. They had to rearrange the line items in their particular budget to cover moving that money from one line item to another. Right. If it came to $1,000.05, they had to come to the board.
Right. That's what I recall.
Yes.
I think we all understand that that's been the practice. I think what we want to get away from, as my understanding, is just the bookkeeping was really, you know.
Well, you can't get away from bookkeeping.
Well, it was not, there's a better way to do the bookkeeping, and we're trying to figure what that looks like.
I mean, there's another municipality that represents its same size as you guys, similar budget as you, and they have a full-time treasurer. That's the nightmare that we frankly don't have. We can't hire another person. It's not in the budget to hire another part-time person, let alone another full-time person. So in the meantime, to make it easier, I would suggest that to the extent the board can adopt a policy that creates a streamlined budgeting tracking system that's okay with your auditor, okay with the state, and frankly easy. I would suggest doing that way ahead of trying to say who. If the money's not there, the money's not there. So to have a department head that can say, yeah, you said no, I'm going to do it anyway.
No. There's two parts to that. The one is if there's no money,
a treasurer can say no due to a lack of funds in accounts. The department head has final ruling and understanding.
So there's two things. So it's poorly written. So it's yay, nay on is there money, is there not money? Boom, yes or no. At that point, the answer is given whether he can or cannot buy a sander in this case. Sanity check comes in, all right, take a look. You know, the town has the money.
So
we
sanity
can-
check's only after yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so. then-
This is
I mean,
not
that's-
resolution form, this is just a
Yeah.
bullet point.
I mean,
Ideas.
things like that, that's what I'm saying, is I have comments like that, they go, I mean, but honestly, some of these policies go hand in hand with, are you gonna look at credit cards, are you gonna look at whether each person, because that kind of takes care of whether he's come to the board. Everything eventually comes to the board, whether he's come to the board retroactively or prospectively.
Not to disagree, but to disagree. Whether he's got a credit card or doesn't have a credit card, excuse me, whether he's got a credit card or he's getting a check cut for a PO, it really doesn't matter at that point. Should he be spending the money, based on the yay, nay, there's money, and that he can move stuff around within his own.
No, that's what I'm saying, with the limit with cards.
Yeah.
That is usually typically set at a limit that the town is okay paying. If this employee, this department head spends that amount every month, can we pay that every month? So that number is typically very low. Like, I'm saying that if that doesn't even go into is there money there, because that minimum, or that maximum that they should be spending, that's a low dollar amount that the board should just plan on spending every month. That's what I'm saying, that's that low amount that is frankly not, I mean, the purchases we're using as examples wouldn't even come close. Large cities, the department heads, some of these large cities with 3 times the budget you have, it's $500. And that's because the council has said, okay, we're department head spending $500, we can write a check for $500 for all 12 months and be fine. Where it comes out of, that's fine, but we have that cash flow. That's a crucial number to set pretty low. And that's what I mean, not whether you should, that, you're right, is on the department head, whether you should be spending this money, is it in the line item, how am I gonna report it to the treasurer, so she can keep track? I mean, there's a reason your treasurer's on, it's because it's not a simple problem.
So, trustee Quinn, your comments on this? Been quiet over there.
Well, I think that, any kind of policy, what we're coming down to is our auditors and our treasurers. And I think we're gonna rely on the expertise of our employees, and our treasurer should have some input on an appropriate procedure. I think that's important. It is her job, her head. I mean, we can guess what, I would really like for staff to speak with an auditor and get a good idea of what. I do like, I think we're all kind of dancing around the same fire here, but, I think any kind of contracted work also, regardless of the dollar threshold, needs to be with.
If it's over X amount of money though?
I think if it's a contract, then it should go before the board.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if it's.
Right.
Typically, any service performed on behalf.
Or like a purchase, like a vehicle or something
Anything.
like that, right?
I mean, even volunteers, there's a reason they volunteer. It's not the dollar, it's not whether they can do it, it's what happens when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Even purchase of equipment, large equipment, small equipment, cars are easy. Yeah, you get a title, great, you can write that number down. Sanders are identified and, have numbers on them. There needs to be some receipt, something that the person that you gave money to signed that said, I'm giving you my interest in this. Yes, I have an interest in this and I'm giving it to you. So that we don't go down the road. I mean, none of this stuff is ever a problem if everything goes smooth. It's always a problem when it's done. So you go to person A's house, you buy a sander that is marked serial number ABC from John Smith. You hand him a check from the town hall, $2,200, you walk out and leave your check there. Now James Smith shows up and says, actually, Senator ABC, I am, not John Smith. You just paid them. John Smith's gone. So we have nothing to say that he, represented, we have nothing to do. I mean, we have no paperwork to go back to John Smith and say, other than, hey, we gave you a check and you have it. We don't have any documentation, we don't have anything to follow up on. So it's not just contracts, it's not just big things, it's little simple things, it's things that you can get a good deal on, it's things that do need to be moved quickly.
It's called a purchase order.
Yeah. Yeah.
No check get cut without a purchase order. And you had various levels for approving purchase orders. That's your documentation, that the purchase order, there was a purchase order signed by the treasurer. That's your control on spending money. So you need to get the purchase order system going here.
Yeah.
That is the audit trail.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
I agree, purchase orders are a great thing. And then, when you go look, force you to look at where am I charging this?
Yeah.
Do I have money? Do I have to check my book?
Yeah.
If the intent is to, properly keep an eye on spending and stay within our budget, put that way and force a look at it.
okay. Okay, good conversations, you guys. Let's put this for next time with the rest of the board members present. And then we can, talk about this stuff.
This is something that you can do a workshop on too, so that if you feel like you guys all meet and talk and kind of hear what other people are thinking, that's the beauty of a workshop, so you don't have to do it during the meeting.
So we can definitely, if that's something, I think we need more information. Municipalities,
Yeah, and that's
Get that.
something that makes it very hard to work at getting. It's not necessarily the request that are taking so long, it's the information coming in that's taking a while. So.
okay. Okay, well, tentatively, or, if we wanted a workshop for our next meeting to discuss it, or, I don't know. I think we're pretty close, I think we. I'll take a look. Recommend. On contract. So would you like to see a workshop? On contracting?
With the input we're waiting to receive.
Okay. What does your schedule look like next meeting?
Available for March. That's our next meeting.
That's our next meeting, the 3rd of March. Trustee Quinn, would you be available at 6 for a workshop? March 3rd.
Next week.
At 6? Okay. Will you be available? Okay, so we'll call a workshop on March 3rd to discuss purchasing policy, contracts, and stuff. Perfect. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
this is outstanding start on fiscal control. I do want to point out there's one other area of purchases you haven't addressed, that is still wide open. That's contracts for construction maintenance repair. And I've been working on that, sending some suggestions on that. And deal process. Different municipalities handle it differently, and I've done some research on the internet. We get Woodland Park, Monument, Fountain, Manitou Springs, and there's excellent examples of how they handle that internally. The state statute says any contract for that kind of work construction, maintenance, repair, paving, building a new town hall, whatever. State statute says cities or contracts over $5,000 must have a bidding process and get competitive bidding. That's what the state statute says. The local communities that check have the same limit for bidding. So I'll be giving you some suggestions on how we might amend our town code to implement the bidding process. Because it really needs to be in the town code.
Mr. Brett, this can be part of that workshop next time.
Well, you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
Just
but
don't
you can
forget,
share that.
because the money I'm talking about is not in your budget. It's in the CIP. For the CIP, 95% of the money comes not from the town budget, but from other sources. So we need to have a program that handles other people's money. So I'll be working on that for you. I wouldn't add it to your workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You guys, 6D, trustee liaison positions. Been sort of thrown around. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you. Thanks.
Only 3 more hours.
Bye, safe travels. One of the things that this board wants to really veer away from is the trustee, how do we say?
The static,
Of the same trustee overseeing the same staff. And we think it's very important that the staff has the opportunity to work with all of the board members and that the board members have we have the opportunity to see the different departments. So often, if you don't, we think it might be healthy to switch up trustee liaison positions. And instead of getting this relationship like a confidant just between 2 people. And so if we'd all just work together in positions, I think that could benefit our employees, department heads, as well as all of us knowing, what the other departments do and all of that. So this is just for discussion to see if, what y'all think about this.
one of the reasons I was bringing it up to begin with was there's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of different backgrounds, I won't say knowledge, wealth of different varying backgrounds that can be useful to go to. So if we take a look at our current, you're with Chief, Tyler is with the admin, and Cook is with Michael, and it works just fine. But what if we switched up to where, say, Dave no longer was over DPW, but instead was over Mary. So he's seen what it's like to need to buy something like that. And then he sees it from the admin side of how does this affect her in that role? And can he utilize some of those points of view in other ways? And the other thing I was thinking of, he's not here to defend himself, was Trustee Stevens is, the committee that he's on is for reworking our policy. And if he were to move from that into taking that time and working on policies, it may speed some of that up as well. But he's not here.
Yeah.
Well, and just as a matter of bookkeeping, you guys sent the trustee liaisons by resolution. So you need to resend by resolution. I can draft that and send it to you.
That would be great.
What kind of type of timeline do you guys want to have? Like how often would you switch them out? Do you think it would be a couple months?
No, not a couple, maybe once a year. I mean, we're getting,
we're getting over in April, we're coming up on a year.
Well, the reason why I ask is because, their positions are only, 2 to 4 years, depending on how people are brought in. To get to know somebody a little bit, I don't know if you could get everyone in to give them an idea of, what each other's positions are and how
So,
it works. And,
Would you?
well, I would just, I'd say like every 6 months, change it just so that everyone gets an idea of what Mary goes through, what I go through, what the chief goes through, and then vice versa, what they can share to us for, their background, and how it may help us.
Even 6 months.
That's, just a suggestion.
Well, that's pretty cool, just thinking of differently and seeing about things. And I think it's more, guys, with our department heads, because, like, you have a great relationship with, Green Box and the historical people, and I would love to keep that relationship as well, but more so with our department heads, and, right. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I think opportunity for cost sharing is good, but I feel like as a trustee liaison that I am not overseeing this department. I am not overseeing, I am not in charge of it. I am the liaison to the board. If there's an issue with the department, it's my job to bring it to the board's attention so that all the board is aware and to make a decision. I do not have that board to make a decision on behalf of the board. And I think that needs to be. But I think as far as cross-training and understanding our employees, I think that's a wonderful thing. I agree with Michael, it shouldn't happen too often. And I think just even taking the time to take another trustee under your wing who is not maybe part of the head, to just to kind of keep them in the loop on things without actually having to switch everyone around. I think that will give you some exposure.
And I see the liaison role almost the opposite, to where you work for chief, not vice versa. If he needs something, he comes to you and asks you for help. It's not exactly to your point. You don't run that department. You work for him when he needs something from.
Well, we all work for him, so
Obviously, yes, but in that capacity, you are his conduit.
It should be a resource.
But what really kind of got this was discussing with you the lake, the dredging of the lake, and your knowledge based on your background of what that comes to. It would be great with that project coming forward to be able to give that over, and just because you're with the marshal's office now doesn't mean you couldn't help, but it would make more sense to.
that's true. Someone asked that.
Okay.
So do you want to, I can draft just a blank, only blanks, and you guys can just.
Yeah, I would
have
like-
more people.
Yes, and I would like more of a discussion and talk to our employees too, because I haven't spoken to everybody about their thoughts. So if you can just draft just a blank, and we'll just see if this is something that we want to do. Okay? Perfect. Okay, moving right along. Mayor's report, I will be attending the CQI meeting on Thursday for the first time in a couple of months. Very excited about that.
What was that?
QI committee, which is the quality, we look at emergency services and see how they're functioning. Yeah, so I represent small communities on that board. So the other thing I wanted to mention is our dog licenses. And that will be on the 28th from 9 to noon at the fire department. Reduced shot clinic. Right, yeah. And that, just make sure that your license, you turned in licenses. And you're gonna say another thing about that? Yeah. No, that's fine.
we do need, proof of your rabies,
Proof of rabies.
and, I'm not mailing their own licenses. I'm hoping that people will be coming to, people that have mailed in their checks. If they want their license, they can either come into the office, or we can hand them out at, the clinic. Then I'll have a list of those who.
And there's been some confusion on the time, especially that I've been here, that people come in to get it. So what do you need to use? What are the acceptable proofs of proof of rabies?
I'd like to see, not just their tag, I wanna see a piece of paper that shows when their rabies expires.
So something from a vet that says, I gave this dog a shot, yeah, this dog a shot this day, it's good for this period.
So are rabies shots available during the shot clinic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Also, the live streaming, I'm so thankful Mr. Lohman has been helping us, and I know there's been talk about the quality and everything. And, you know, we're still using the same equipment as we did, and this is gonna be something that we hope to, in the future, you know, we're moving forward here, but, you know, spending $31,000, it's just not, in my opinion, the best thing. So please know that, you know, this is something that we're looking into, and we realize how important it is for our community. Saying that as, so, you guys, we do need help in that area, so if anyone, if you have students at home, high school students at home, if you have, you know, friends that could just come and get on this live streaming committee, and they could be here when Mr. Wilman, you know, can train you guys or whatever to help us right now in the interim, that would be very, very helpful. So, and then finally, we received a letter about the feeding of the geese, and Lord, I really, this needs to be brought back to our attention again. You know, there was a committee, Mr. Cook is not here, and so what I'd like to do is have an update on this at our next board meeting with Mr. Cook, and I think we need to look into this closer. I think we've done it, we just sort of not, we've really not put closure in this with our citizens. You know, there's sort of, what are we doing? And I feel like this is a topic, especially with summer coming and all the people in town, that we need to put this to rest and figure things out. But Mr. Cook is not here to give a report, and so we can put this on the agenda for next time. Okay? Trustee Ken?
I do have a regional building meeting tomorrow.
I didn't know about that.
Thank you for serving on that. Trustee Butts?
I think we covered everything.
Okay, Trustee Ellis?
Nothing new.
Okay, Mary? No more report? Nothing? Michael,
Yes.
you had your report?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry to get it out soon. Well, the weather report that we've had 2 snow events in the last 2 weeks, totaling 14 inches. And our year-to-date total so far, this is measured at the shop, by the way, so it's not always the best accurate picture, is 39 inches. And then we have more snow in the forecast for the end of the weekend. As far as maintenance, myself and Dan have replaced 6 deck planks on the gazebo walkway. The worst ones of the boards that were all, wore out, falling apart, and everything there. And we're also repairing the benches that are also on the walkway as well. So hopefully those will be all spiffed up a little bit better here. As far as news, I've attended 2 meetings with the PPRTA in the last 2 weeks. One was CAC, or the Citizens Advisory Committee, and also with the Board of Trustees meeting. These meetings basically were about the maintenance of efforts reports for all the entities and the people that also myself, Dave Cook, and Tyler Stevens sat down with Rick Sonberg, and I can't pronounce Betty's last name, my house together. Weird. But anyways, regarding on how we use our funds and an overview of information about PPRTA, because we were kind of unclear on some of the things, and so he kind of gave us a refresher on some of those things there. And then just to kind of keep you guys up to date, we still don't have the GMC here yet, so we're just kind of notice my urgency. I know that we don't have the funds right now, but as soon as it does, I really need to get that.
And what is wrong with that?
The power steering pump, that's on there. We've tried a couple times to repair that. We put a old one, new power steering, actually the pump, I took it off and tried to match up a new remanufactured power steering pump to the old reservoir, but it didn't seal properly, so it still leaks, and so I can't use it still. And so, you know, I've talked to Marshall here, or he talked to me that he knows somebody that does some repair work and maybe I'll get it done at a cheaper cost. But we really need to get that fixed soon because we still only have that's it. So we're relying on that one vehicle.
Lord, I am very, very concerned about the snowstorm that's coming up this weekend and the fact that we have one vehicle only. Dana's been going around in the big, what is that?
Backhoe. The backhoe.
Okay, okay, and that's just unacceptable in my opinion because it can't get up to the roads that we really need plowed in the snowstorm.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes, so I think it's an urgency that this week, if we could get that running.
Well, I had mentioned to Dave Cook, and he was going to put it, but whether you know we get someone else to fix it, or if I could get it down to where we've had some of our maintenance done before. That's Jerry's out of Manatee, and they would be able to repair it. But you know, I don't want to disrupt the funding.
What's the cost for the part and the labor?
I don't know the parts labor right now. I have to find out.
Roughly,
Well, the rebuilt or remanufactured one was about anywhere from $50 to $100, and that's just stuff that I've seen online. Their rate is like $65 to $75 an hour.
it's
So $300.
$350.
I mean, or,
So at that point, so looking at if we were to either one, Don's yours or mine, planning, do we have the money to do it?
yeah, so can we authorize him to do that tonight, guys?
Yes.
Okay, because that's a priority, I just saw the weather before I came, and I think this could be a doozy this weekend.
I appreciate the three of y'all holding off for the last couple of weeks, and not spending everything this time.
Did you say that we do have the money for this
We have
work?
$350.
Okay. So Michael, can you
Yes,
please,
Dana and I will get that done.
okay, do we need a motion for that?
I mean,
You would? Okay, so board, I recommend a motion at this time to direct the works director to work on the GMC and get the part needed and have it operational for this week.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No report, I'll catch up March 3rd.
Okay, Mr. Brock? Okay. There's one other item, board, we did get municipal correspondence. Not only the letter from Mr. Joe. Trying to think of. Oh, sir. But, anyway, we also got a letter from Emily in the Lucky Dog correspondence. Somewhere, did you put that in? It's the last page. And so, talking about the minutes and how we're gonna work, you know, some of those things about addressing on minutes from the communication. One other thing, you guys, we had a citizen want to step up and serve on the CAP PPRTA, and that's Nancy Bernard. And then also Michael Cullinane. I'll send a little email to Rick. But I just want y'all to meet Nancy. She wants to serve in that capacity, and that's very good. So she'll attend those meetings for us. Okay, is there any other business? Okay, there's no other business, it's adjourned at 8:40 tonight. Whoa. That's good. Thank you.
So when I was gonna show. So I think, I belong to an individual